Hello, this is part 5 in a series of 6 sessions in learning the indirect speech for commands and imperatives. This lesson can be used remotely or in class learning. The focus, again, is in session 5, or this part 5, is on indirect speech for commands in a written format. This lesson can be used with Mega Goal 6, Traveler 6, and Flying High 5. Before we start, I'd like to reiterate what active learning is when done in class and remotely. So it is when each and every student is totally engaged in carrying out incremental learning experiences that make sense to them, and they are assisted in connecting these experiences to a whole concept that meets the learning expectations for each grade level or course. We use a color code in this lesson. There is a before you start color, and when you see the screen, it is a learning color. When you see the blue, it's a do it alone and check color, and the last one is for testing yourself. So again, to reiterate this, the session is only focusing on indirect speech imperatives using commands, that is. Now, we're not going to go through this because we already talked about it in part 1 of the 6 series. So if you'd like to hear the audio for this one, you can go to part 1 in the series, which is online, or you can pause the video and read each of the 4 principles that we use in designing the beginning of the task. A very good thing that you could do is you can read this, and then you can look at the next task and say, how are these 4 principles being implemented? So this is the first task. It implements the 4 principles. We're going to give the students 4 sets of sentences that mean the same thing, but we're going to ask them to mark the changes that they see in the second sentence of each pair. Now, you can give each set alone and ask them to do it and then give feedback, or you can put all 4, and then when they finish, then you give feedback. The difference is that if your students are highly competent, then you can give all 4 together. But if they need a lot of help, then you put each one alone and give feedback so that they can use that feedback on the next one. So when they finish this, you're going to give them feedback. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. The first way, you can ask the students to work in pairs and to tell each other the changes that they saw in the second one and what they marked. Remember, they need to tell each other, not just hand each other papers. Okay, we want that verbal interaction. The second way, after the verbal interaction and giving feedback to each other in pairs, then we can go to the slide with the answers, or rather with the differences, so that the students can check and compare what they have done to what they see. So let's start. This was the first one. We want to mark the changes in the second pair. So notice that you're going to take them through the process after they have experienced it by themselves on their own first. Be proud of your country, Wafa told her students. Wafa told her students to be proud of their country. Now, these are the exact words that Wafa said. These are not the exact words that Wafa said. Notice that there is no period or punctuation after students. There is no quotation marks. Oh, look, we added the word to before be, and we changed your to their, and we didn't put any quotation marks at the end. So notice everybody can do this, not only the students whose level of English is higher. And this is very important because the students were doing something different in another subject or language before they came into your classroom, or they were engaged in something else. So it is important to create an experience that helps the students slow down and see the process. And you can see that this is visible thinking. Now we go to the next one. Respect everyone, Hanan told her children. Hanan told her children to respect everyone. Again, we want the changes, but we do not need to preach or mention the values, that are underlying the sentences that we have as examples. Like, for example, we subtly said, respect everyone, Hanan told her children. So that's a kind of a subtle message. There is no need to focus and then keep, like spending class time trying to preach about it. It's a subtle, it's peripheral. It will go in most of the time. So some of the sentences are not just to represent the what is being learned, but rather it's a subtle message in values and consideration of others. So let's look at the changes. All right, respect everyone are the exact words Hanan told her children. To respect everyone are not the exact words Hanan said. And we don't have a punctuation or a period right here. We don't have a quotation mark. We added two. There are no quotation marks at the end. So notice how this is helping the students build a process and procedure in examining the differences in order to build what we call a mental grammar rule rather than a verbal with difficult terminology. Here's the third one. Go get some coffee and tea from the supermarket, he told me. He told me to go get some coffee and tea from the supermarket. So the exact words are not the exact words. And no punctuation, no quotation marks. We added two, no quotation marks. So the language rule is starting to build up. And the last one, ask the waiter for some water, Ibrahim told Ahmed. So what are Ibrahim's exact words? Ask the waiter for some water. And how did we report it? To ask the waiter for some water, and those are not the exact words Ibrahim said. We also noticed that no punctuation mark, no quotation marks. We also added the word to ask the waiter for some water, and no punctuation marks at the end. So now we notice what is going on. And after we finish this, the most important part is for the rules to be mentally learned and verbalized orally. However, the students may not have the exact wording or the ability to verbalize what has happened. Remember, there are so many other parts, but this is incremental. So this is the first part of the learning. So we want to verbalize this first part by summing it up. So this is the sum up. If your student's English is, on a higher level, you can probably ask them to, write or tell each other the mental process in changing from the direct speech to the indirect speech using imperatives, or we might just go in straight into summing it up. So notice the verbalization. When the exact words sentence, this is it, starts with a command verb such as go, take, get, bring, like that, the word to is added before the verb in the reported speech. There is the result is an infinitive phrase that begins with to. However, if the command verb is preceded with the word don't, we drop the do and put the not before the to put, but we don't have a do. Now, I also like you to notice that the word please is only used in the direct speech. However, in the reported speech, we do not need to use it because we say please to the person we're talking to rather than the person we're talking about. Now, that was the summary. Now, what are we doing in the learning part? So this is a very important, this is an addition to what we have been doing to explain why we're doing the things the way we do. So the important thing to do as we take students through a learning session is to ensure that at certain points, the students go through incremental experiences that help them build up and consolidate their learning. So just as each part of the six-part series that we're doing, each part of or each session of that six-part series is helping the students construct a fuller concept of the indirect speech. Now, each part of the session of the 40 minutes or 50 minutes or an hour, so we can do incremental building per session, and we can do incremental building within the session. So each part of the session needs to help students develop the concept and incremental experiences, as we have seen in the ones we did before, but in this one we feel now that enough experience has passed so that we can focus on talking to the instructor teacher about how this is done. So how do we do that? We achieve that by providing the students with a task that only focuses on the part learned. So notice that we did about 5 minutes or 10 minutes and we reached a sum up. So that was the part learned. We will use visible thinking in a task and focus on that part learned, which is very, very different from the traditional giving them an exercise, because most of the times an exercise is given to the students with the sole purpose of checking if their answers are right or wrong. But by using visible thinking in the task, that helps the students, their teachers can identify the gaps in the process and remedy those gaps before we move and it's too late. So in other words, making mistakes is part of the learning process. So let's illustrate it with this task, incremental task that we're going to give the students. So notice the instructions at the top. Circle the person who is giving the command. So that's visible. And underline the person who is receiving the command. That's also visible. So we are focusing on who is giving the command, who is receiving the command, and what happens to the reported part, you know, when we change the direct command like go to go. Correct the mistakes if there are any, write correct if there are no mistakes. So this is a very simplistic, visible thinking task that only focuses on those first 5 minutes or 10 minutes that we worked on. Again, have the students do it alone, and then you can, for time's sake, you know, just go straight into the feedback. I don't think that too much time should be wasted in the students sitting together in pairs and telling each other what they thought here. But if there is enough time, then it's a good idea to do it. So let's check. So if we notice here, they is the person giving the command. Me is the person receiving it. To go home, they told me that is correct. Now notice the not part. Musad is the person giving the command. Me is the person receiving the command, but notice the to see. So the original probably would be see, or with the not, do not see the movie. But we drop the do, but we keep the not, and we have to see. So that's correct. Maha asked Khalid to assist her with her homework. Again, correct. Now, Khalid told his son, and if you look at the to not make is wrong, and not to make is correct. So we corrected it. Wafa asked the teacher to show her how to do the homework. Ask the teacher, show her homework is incorrect. To show her how to do her homework is correct. The other one is incorrect, and this one is correct. So spend some time, look at this, and you know you can do it with any book. Just change the wording. Now, more incremental learning. So we focused in the first part, who gives the command, who receives the command, etc. Now we're going to start focusing a little bit more on the process and procedure of how this is done. Let's have a look. Stand on the right of the escalator, Musa told his children. Now, notice what we chose. This is being considerate to other people, especially in malls and airports and wherever you have an escalator, where people stand on both sides and somebody is in a hurry, cannot move. The considerate thing to do is to stand on the right so that people in a hurry can run up the left side. Again, this is a subtle message of consideration towards others. It would be nice if we start to design, the work and sentences that people would be, students will be reading, and don't pay too much attention to it. Don't stop and try to explain consideration and inconsideration. That would defeat the purpose. This is subtle, Anyway, so let's look at what we've got. Musa gives the command. His children receive the command. And these are Musa's exact words. Stand on the right of the escalator. Now, let's change that to reported speech. Musa told his children, so gives the command to receive the command. And what do we do with the verb at the beginning of the direct speech to turn it into reported speech? We put a to stand. And notice that it's no longer capital. To stand where? On the right of the escalator. And that is the reported, or not the exact words that Musa told his children. Now, let's look at another one. Again, look at the subtle message. Do not leave the fridge door open, my mom told me. And we do that a lot, every one of us is guilty of it at one point, where we open the fridge door and we start looking, at the contents of the fridge. And, that decreases the coolness in the fridge, which may cause some of the foods to rot much faster. Not to mention the waste of energy. Again, very subtle, right? Okay. Now, what do we need to do? Who gives the command and who receives the command? My mom gave the command. She told it to me, so I am the person receiving it. The direct speech, or the exact words, do not leave the fridge door open. Now, let's change that to reported speech. Now, let's look at the person receiving the command and anything else. So there is nothing related here for us to change anything. So it's a pretty straightforward, except it's do not. And the actual verb is leave. So we need to go, my mom told me, and what do we put? To leave, but with a not before it, not to leave. And of course, the fridge door open, and don't forget a period at the end, etc. So all of these were learned from sessions 1 through 4, and this is the 5th one. So whatever we learn before becomes something that you need or you want the students to do. It's not, oh, we're not learning end punctuation, now we can disregard it. We learned it in a previous session, it's got to be applied here. Let's look at the do it alone. So this previous one was a short learning part, and this is called the incremental experience. Do it alone. And this is where you start to consolidate your learning. So in the first incremental, we did it. Now we're doing it again after maybe 5 or 10 minutes. It gives the student time to process what they have just seen and do it themselves. And they're going to do it with visible thinking. Visible thinking means here that they actually make marks and circles, etc., to show how they're thinking. And that helps them and their instructor identify any gaps in the process to help them. So what are the instructions? Highlight the direct quote in green and circle. Now, these are not going to be difficult instructions for the students because in the previous ones, they did exactly. So the previous learning modeled exactly what they're supposed to do here. Nobody can say, oh, I don't know what to do, because it was modeled. And this saves a lot of time from having to go around and ensure everybody knows what to do. So this is really very important. Let's look at the instructions. Highlight the direct quote in green, circle the person who's giving the command, and underline the person who is receiving the command. Make lines to show which words refer to other words, and draw arrows from the direct quote to the sentence to the reported speech sentence to show the changes you made. Now, some of these were also learned in previous sessions. Therefore, they are familiar. Let's have a look. Stop so that the people can cross the road, Khalid told his driver. Again, subtle sentence for being considerate. You know, like people need to cross the road. Yeah, well, stop and let them cross the road. Okay? Let's, when they finish doing this, it would be a good idea here, at least for the first one, you know, to get the students to tell each other what they did and show each other what they did. So we have tell and show what they did, not just shove the paper to the other person and go, this is what I did. And then we give them the feedback. All right. So let's look at the feedback. Stop so that people can cross the road. Khalid told his driver. What do we have first? We need to look for the direct quote, who gave the command, who received the command. Khalid gave the command, his driver received the command, and Khalid's exact words were, stop, so that the people can cross the road. Now, reporting it, we need to start with Khalid told his driver. That's fine. What happened to the stop? It needs to be preceded with a to stop. And we follow with the rest of the sentence. Don't forget capital letters and punctuation mark. All of these are very important so that they become a habit. Now we're going to give them another one. Again, we're not going to go through the instructions. It follows the same procedure. Don't put the pizza box on my car hood, Abdullah told Ahmed. And there is a picture here. Now, this is another way of helping students learn new words. Don't put the pizza box, very simple, on my car hood. Now, if hood is not a word that they have taken before, this picture is going to help. Pizza box on the hood. All right. So that is how we make meaning of words and visuals and the context of the sentence help. Let's change it. Again, who gives the command? Abdullah. To who? To Ahmed. Good. Exact words. But notice it starts with don't. So we need to drop the do, keep the not, and put a to, like this. Oh, by the way, Abdullah and my car are the same people. So don't put the pizza box on my car hood. My is referring to Abdullah and not to Ahmed. So we need to make sure that when we convert the my in the indirect speech, it should refer to Abdullah and not to Ahmed. So Abdullah told Ahmed, how do we make the put? With a not and a to. Not to put what? The pizza box on his car hood. So Abdullah and his refer to each other here. Another sentence of being considerate, turn down the volume of your phone in public places, Maha told her son. And again, I think a lot of us have experienced, you know, being somewhere in a restaurant or on a plane or in a coffee shop where somebody is playing a video of something from YouTube very loudly. That is very inconsiderate. So either you get a pair of earphones or headset, or you just really turn down the volume of your phone. Now, after they finish, let's check and see how it's converted. First, who gave the command and who received it? You got it here. And the exact words here. So when we put that in report to speech, we've got to go, Maha told her son. But her son and your are the same. When she said, turn down the volume of your phone, the your is addressing her son. So when we put it in reported speech, we've got to reflect and change the your to reflect son. Let's try that. Maha told her son, and the verb is turn down, so we need to turn down. And to turn down what? The volume of, we can't say your anymore because we're not talking to the son. We're talking about the son, and the son is a boy, so the volume of his phone in public places. This is what we just did. Now, that was an increment, and the lesson is finished. This is the end of the lesson where you want the students to test themselves. So notice what we did. We did an opening that helped them observe, and everybody can do it. Then we learned something and did incremental task for an experience. Then we did something and did an incremental task for an experience. And this is the final part that assesses on two levels. The first level is a structure within the sentence. So write the missing word in their correct form in the blanks. Call me in the evening, Hussein told me. So this is a level that shows us if they can understand the sentence and put the missing part as a correct structure based on what they have learned. Then the next task for testing yourself would be even on a higher level. So let's have a look at this. Call me in the evening, Hussein told me. Hussein told me, blank, blank, blank in the evening. Wash the car every day, my dad told me. My dad told me. Again, what is the structure? So here, it's kind of a first step assessment to see if they can do the structure. Now, if we have a problem here, you can be assured that we have a bigger problem in rewriting the whole sentence. Now, here, what we can do is the students can do this. We can ask them to tell each other their answers and show each other their answers, and then we can give them feedback like this. If everybody's doing well and there are no problems here or insignificant problems, then we can move to a higher level. And this is the higher level where they have to rewrite each sentence correctly. And notice we said, including punctuation and capitalization. Keep our city streets clean, my sister told me. So my sister told them, again, if they can do the previous one like 95% correct, there shouldn't be any problem here. But if the previous one still has serious problems, then they are not ready for this one. And again, when they finish, we will ask them to tell each other their answers and show each other their answers. So it is not the test, but it is part of the learning process. But the nice thing about this is that you can do exactly the same thing in a test by just changing the words and the sentence. So the student comes to the test and knows exactly what is required of him or her, but they say, okay, I know what to do. I don't know what exactly I'm going to do it on, but I know what to do. And that is motivational. Tests and exams should not be surprises and tricks. I would like to thank all of you for participating. And if you'd like to look at how we are planning this, and if you would like to contact us, we would love to hear from you. Thank you very much. And we will be putting up the 6th one in the series very, very soon.